Bienvenido. If you are able, please share this show with a friend, leave us a nice review on the podcast player of your choice, or if you'd like to support us financially, sign up for the companion podcast, The St. Nicholas Project, on Gum Road. All these things really help us out. Namaste.
Hello, friend. The Mystical American Patriots Society is transmitting to you from beneath 4 million cubic feet of solid granite, in the burning heart of the Yellowstone caldera. This is a variety program for normal sandwich-eating Americans with some concerns about living in a deranged, post-Christian technocracy. So, keep your third eye on the sky and your ear to the ground, as Sumo and Smokestack connect your main brain vein to a higher plane. Are you ready? Stand by.
Listen close to this crooked mouth, for my story I will tell. Lived in Mexico by the name. Hello?
Hey,
What are you doing?
I'm just sitting here. What are you doing?
I keep hearing you, shout at me.
Shouting at you?
Okay, I'm going to start over.
Okay.
Stop shouting.
All right, go ahead.
Clear the phlegm. All right, you ready?
I'm ready.
Listen close to this crooked mouth, for my story I will tell. Lived in Mexico by the name of Wenceslao Miguel. Left my home in Santiago, in the heart of the city of Mérida. Served with my brothers and sisters all for the army of Pancho Villa. Stand me straight against the nearest wall. Line up your bravest soldiers all. 10 good shots, I'll take them all. They call me El Fusilado. The federales captured me, bound up my arms with a wire. Officer came, he said, take your aim, ready your guns and fire. Bullet holes all across my chest, ripped up my shirt and my body, oh. Heartbeat on through the silence comes to the rhythm of life inside me, oh. Stand me straight against the nearest wall. Line up your bravest soldiers all. 10 good shots, I'll take them all. They call me El Fusilado. Fell to the ground, the officer came. One last shot to the head, oh. Heard through the pain as he walked away and left me there for dead, oh. All went quiet, so I crawled away. I wasn't giving up to the glory. 10 good shots, I took them all and lived to tell my story. Stand me straight against the nearest wall. Line up your bravest soldiers all. 10 good shots, I'll take them all. They call me El Fusilado. Stand me straight against the nearest wall. Line up your bravest soldiers all. 10 good shots, I'll take them all. They call me El Fusilado. The creatures outside looked from pig to man, and from pig to man again. But it was already impossible to say which was which. Urge towers. Urge towers. Urge towers. The creatures looked from pig to man and from man to pig to man again. But already it was impossible to say which was which. Urge towers! Urge towers! The creatures outside looked from pig to man and man from pig to man again, but it was already impossible to tell which was which. Urge towers. Urge towers. Good morning, everybody. Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you?
I'm great. I'm a little confused.
I think I figured out what it was. I think I'm hearing my own self in my earphones.
Okay.
It's not you shouting at me, it's me shouting at me.
Yeah, that's gotta be weird.
Will that affect my recording?
I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah, because it's like, ugh. But see, here's the thing. My headphones plug into my microphone. So I don't know. I hope not. I hope it's all good. We'll see.
You'll be all right.
Yeah. How's everybody tonight?
We're all great.
Yeah. Listener, how are you?
I'm doing awesome. Thanks for asking.
You know, I think if I turn my own volume down, I don't hear myself as much. That's a radio trick.
Yeah.
Audio trick.
You're a pro broadcaster.
I'm really getting there. I'm
Yeah, I can tell.
I'm becoming excellent.
Yes.
You said you were confused. What are you confused about?
What that whole thing was with the pig people.
Do you recognize the quote?
No, I don't.
Okay, I'll say it again without the did you hear the radio?
I did. There was all sorts of crazy sounds going on.
Yeah. It all serves a purpose. I think we're all going to see what that purpose is. I think we're all going to learn together and grow. This is a place of growth.
All right.
We're all going to become, at the end of this, we're all going to be better people, I think.
I love growth.
I do too. Okay, so the creatures outside looked from pig to man and from man to pig and from pig to man again. But already it was impossible to say which was which. Guess what that's from? Our listeners know. I hear them screaming it over the ether in forward in time. I hear them screaming the answer.
Well, they're not screaming it to me because I have no idea.
Okay, it's a book by a certain George Orwell.
Oh, Animal Farm?
Animal Farm, exactly.
Oh.
Animal Farm. Have you ever read Animal Farm?
I have not.
It's one of those that you don't need to read.
It's like it's already installed. Everything about it is already installed into my brain without reading it. So I didn't figure it was worth it.
Which is, that's how I feel about most people. When I talk to people, especially like liberal arts people, they assume I've read a lot more than I have.
Yeah.
But that's just because I just sort of know what things are about.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Like, I know what Gulliver's Travels is all about. I never read Gulliver's Travels. This is boring. It's awful.
Yeah, Animal Farm, same way.
Yeah. It's just like my friend used to say, if he ever had an autobiography, it would be called Trying to Finish Moby Dick. And because it's impossible to finish Moby Dick, because it was from the time when people had nothing to do but sit around and write.
Well, now, careful. One of our super listeners, that's his favorite book.
It's okay. It's your favorite book.
You're going to catch some fire on this.
Thematically, it's great, but I don't need the thing about it is, if you read half the book is trying to tell you an in-depth thing of the whaling industry in 1837 or whenever it was written,
which sounds fascinating.
In its way, but the whole time you're like, okay, but there is a cannibal on board. Can we learn about that? And no, we need to learn about how to polish the hooks. It's like, okay, let's learn about polishing the hooks. Now can we learn about the cannibal? No, now we need to learn about how you swab the ship maintenance. Okay, I mean the best part of Moby Dick is, other than Captain Ahab just screaming at the sky, is "Call me Ishmael," first line.
Yeah.
This is a tip, listeners. If you want to appear more well-read than you are, just learn the first sentence of most of the major works.
That's true.
So you can quote them. Like, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times.
And then maybe read the last chapter if you really want to go for points.
Yeah, like, what is Anna Karenina? It's
I don't remember.
All
now.
happy families are happy in the same way, but all unhappy families are unhappy in their own way, something like that.
Yeah.
And Call Me Ishmael is, of course, the greatest line in Moby Dick. It's the first line, because it signifies that he's not Isaac, he's not the chosen child, he's the castaway child.
Right.
He's Ishmael, right? Anyway, so that's one of the things with Animal Farm, and I was also screaming the word urge towers, which is a meme that I've recently picked up on that I think describes situations perfectly. What we're going to talk about. We're going to talk a lot about tonight. We're going to talk about the ideas of Jonas Salk, the inventor of the polio vaccine.
Oh yeah, man, I've read him.
We're going to talk about human farming. We're going to talk about the download and the way multiple realities exist simultaneously. Right? We're talking about all these things.
It's going to be a weird show.
It's going to be weird. I think it's all going to come together quite nicely. But first, I want to complain about the show Mythbusters, which proves that we are timely and fashionable, trendy people, because we're talking about a show that's been off the air for over a decade.
Yeah.
And then we're going to do mailbag, I think.
Yeah, we're going to do mailbag.
I recently resaw a clip of an episode of Mythbusters that angered me because it was wrong. And I like Mythbusters. Most of the time they were correct. But on this one, this was the worst Mythbusters fail, in my opinion, where they concluded something was busted, but their test was actually flawed. Most of their test was pretty good throughout the show, but this one was not good. It was the one where they were doing the World War II simulation of Japanese soldiers, the myth that they occasionally use their katanas to cut machine gun barrels in half. Right? Like
okay.
they would,
which is preposterous, but okay.
Huh?
Which is preposterous, but okay.
Okay, but I know it sounds crazy, and I doubt that it happened. But their test was not correct for one fatal flaw.
What's that?
Right, because so they correctly identified that if the barrel is very, very hot, having been just fired at a bunch of Japanese people running up a hill at you with samurai swords.
Yep.
Right, and then you ran out of bullets for the last two, who then stabbed you. That it would be easier to cut through. That's true. Okay, very, very hot. Okay. Then they used the maximum swinging force of a human being, right?
Okay.
Okay, that was good too. And they made a machine. They didn't want to whack because they're, little bit wussies, and they didn't want to, like, on air bang a sword full speed into another piece of metal on the off chance that it shattered and killed someone.
Sure.
Okay, so they made a little robot to do this with the same force. And then it didn't work, and they concluded myth busted. Right? Okay, but here's the main problem with that. Anyone that has experience with katanas, and I know that's all of our listeners, because I know what you guys were like in high school. You know that you don't just chop the curve of the sword is important.
You gotta have a slicing motion.
You have to pull down when it connects. Exactly. And you can test this for yourself if you get your katana out, which you all have, I know that you do, and you just take a pencil, hold it in your other hand, you just let the weight of the sword fall on the pencil from your other hand, and it won't do anything. Now let it fall. You don't have to put any pressure. You don't have to just let gravity take it, and then pull backwards as you do, and it'll cut right through. The total difference. And so I've always felt when I first saw that episode and when I resaw it now recently that I always wanted to write an angry letter to Adam Savage and tell him one, that his comb over is fooling nobody.
Yeah, truth.
And then two, that he did this test wrong. And then three, that Jamie was superior to him in every engineering way possible.
Yeah.
Which my favorite thing about Mythbusters was that the two of them actually hated each other.
They did?
Yeah, apparently that was pretty well known, as they did not get along at all. And they just were doing it for the money. And Jamie about walked away several times, and they just kept increasing his pay because he had to deal with Adam. Which I think you can see. I think you could imagine that in your head, what that would be like.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to deal with him.
Yeah. No. So, That is my the other one. They did one. The other one I got mad about was when they were urinating on an electric fence. I think they eventually corrected themselves. My memory may be flawed here, but they were trying to pee on electric fences and seeing if it really shocked you.
Mm-hmm.
Which it can.
Yeah.
Lots of people have done this, right? And I think I could be wrong about this one. I think they concluded busted and then went back and said, "Oh no, it's not. It's actually true." I think that they did it wrong because they didn't include, like, when your urine stream comes out. If you ever watch, I know everyone pays attention to their urine streams, and it sort of like does a torsion motion. You ever notice this?
I have laminar flow urine.
No, you don't.
I do. Yeah, it's like it looks like it's frozen in space.
What's wrong with you?
I'm just kidding.
Okay, I thought something was seriously medically wrong with you. The liquid sort of turns in the air like a spiral.
Yeah, sure.
And that spiral is important to our electrical conductivity in some way. And so when you just have a straight stream like out of a hose, it doesn't work the same. But I think they did correct that.
Okay.
I don't remember.
I always thought those guys looked like they were in one of those Stomp Clap Hey bands. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah, I love Stomp Clap Hey.
Really? I did not
Get
like it.
Get yourself a suitcase, dear. Pack yourself something to do. Take a withdrawal slip. Take a love you say. The Lumineers.
Lumineers were the ultimate Stomp Clap Hey.
They were a great band. I don't know why people hate on Stomp. This is just, it's fashionable because it's recently gone out of style to hate on it. But in like 5 years, everyone will be like, Stomp Clap Hey. It's great. Stomp Clap Hey was a great genre. It's still a great genre. Mumford & Sons had some great songs, even though their personality is a bit weird. Yeah, I'll defend Stomp Clap. You know, the thing is, even though I was never a hipster, I was always a hipster, which makes me the most hipster.
Before it was hip?
I mean, I think I was just always like, I had a beard, and then other people collected beards. And then beards went out of style again, and I still have the beard.
Yeah.
I just lived through the whole thing. It came and went, and I did not change.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I've had a beard since I was like 18.
Yeah.
Fashion comes and goes, but my beard endures.
The whole time.
Flannel?
Yeah, you wore flannel, I think, since you were born. But the things that kept me from being a hipster was that, like, is I never would wear suspenders. I never used any sort of beard oil.
Yeah.
That's a big thing that makes me out. I never listened to things on vinyl, because why? And then I do not like coffee.
Yeah.
So I had four big...
You're utterly disqualified.
I never rode a unicycle. And so those five things, or like one of those bicycles with one giant wheel in the front.
Yeah, the big wheel. Yeah.
Which do look fun. I would like to try one of those. They look very inefficient for like going uphill. It looks terrible.
Yeah.
But I think if you're in the Netherlands, that should be underwater, I think it's probably okay. And stuff like that, or like the streets of Petty.
Yeah.
I think that's so. I defend the hipsters, and the only place you can really go now, where there are still a thriving hipster cultures, it still exists in Brooklyn, though it is decaying. It is washing. The tide of hipsterism is receding in Brooklyn, but it's still there, and you can also find hipsters in Brazil. In South America.
No kidding.
Well, yeah, because everything that's cool in South America is exactly what was cool in regular America 10 years after the fact.
Okay.
It's been that way since time immemorial.
Sounds like Mississippi.
Yeah, like if like disco was the 70s, and then in the 80s Brazil was like disco. You know, with Brazil, yeah. And then they're just always 10 years behind, because you take all the stuff, people sell it on the thrift store, and it trickles down the river of economics into the third world.
There you go.
And that's where it is. But I Stomp Clap Hey is good music. But okay. Anyway, We have to do mailbag before we talk about Urge Towers and.
Well, we do. I think we have our first contact from our trucker army.
Okay. Oh yeah. Wait. 1 second. I love the trucker army. I also want to. Someone sent us a tweet message.
Okay.
You and me both, with a picture of a man in a carriage and a hippo.
Yeah.
Who did that? Whoever you are, we love you. I just forgot your name, your username for 1 second.
Let me check my notifications.
Anywho, I wanted to address the hippo. Specifically, I wanted to address it through the lens of Jared Diamond's Gun, Germs, and Steel book. Have you read this book?
No.
Jared Diamond is a guy. He wrote Gun, Germs, and Steel, which was an effort to explain why Europeans developed technology when other people didn't. Right? So it was like, why did Europeans sail to Africa and find large parts of Africa still in like tribal ways? Right? And the North American Indians still in tribal-ish ways. And without, I don't think the Native Americans had iron. I don't think they had bronze either. They may have had bronze.
I don't think they had any metallurgy at all.
Yeah, I feel like they were using something. They may have had tin, just tin itself.
Okay.
Because you mix copper and tin to make bronze. I think they maybe had tin, but don't quote me on that. It may have just been like an Aztec or an Inca thing. But in any case, they didn't have. And so Jared Diamond wanted to explain this in a very liberal, politically correct way.
Okay.
That avoided any sort of talk of IQ differences, right?
Yeah.
And I'm still not sold on the IQ difference thing.
No, it's not IQ. It's because the Europeans had the light of God.
That may be. It's Christianity. Very well possible. But then the Middle Easterners also had Christianity. But of course, what's his name? A guy that talks about anti-fragile.
Taleb.
Yeah, it was populated by people like him, so they couldn't do anything. I mean, there's a lot of like Arabs and the Jews and people like that are all they're all great and they can crush it, but people like Taleb are just like, well, we eat the grapes and we sit around and we sip the wine and we look pompous.
He's a flaneur.
Yeah, and there's too many of those people.
Yeah.
In the Mediterranean to do anything.
Yeah.
That's a big problem. It's all the Mediterranean has this problem of extreme laziness.
There's a critical mass of flaneurs.
Yeah, there's a critical mass of and so Jared Diamond's arguments were all basically a large part of it. There's like a full chapter devoted to they couldn't domesticate animals in other places, which is absurd. Yeah. I don't know how anyone ever thought that was a good argument. I don't know what the answer is. It may be Christianity, but whatever. But there's no possible he was like you can't. Europeans had cows, which you could domesticate, and you had they got the horses. This is how I'm imagining him talking, which you could domesticate, and they had the goats and the sheep. And this was a major advantage. And first of all, the other people did domesticate animals.
Right.
Just not that many.
There's a lot of places in Central South America, the Asia Pacific Islands, that chickens are just walking around everywhere. I mean, they're a native animal, and you can just grab them, put them in a pen.
Right. But then he transitions to the main thing was that they didn't have any animals that could pull plows or that you could ride, which is, in every case, incorrect.
Right.
Because you got the person that sent us the picture of the guy being pulled on a cart by a hippo. Mm-hmm. You can do it with a hippo. Now, I would not choose a hippo as my first choice.
They'll mess you up.
Very dangerous. Very hard to control. You have to feed them a lot, right? Yep. They have to be wet. That's a problem if you want to plow a field all the time. If your plowing animal has to constantly be wet,
you spritz him.
It's annoying. But you have all manner of cow-like creatures in Africa.
True.
I mean, there's all kinds of water buffaloes and bull species. I mean, there's just all kinds of cow-like. animals that can be, and he's like, you can't domesticate these. Yes, you can. People have done so. They've done so in the last 100 years. They've been domesticated in their people. I mean, people in Australia. I mean, not Australia, New Zealand farm deer. They have domesticated deer.
Yep.
That sit in pens and they like cows. You can domesticate any animal.
Yep.
The Native Americans had buffalo, which we have domesticated since arriving, and which are perfectly capable of pulling things if you cared to teach them to do that. Right? And for that matter, the Incas did domesticate alpacas.
Yeah,
so
they sure did.
It doesn't follow. I just wanted to talk about that because every time I see a hippo pulling a cart, which is more often than you might imagine, I think about Jared Diamond's dumb argument, and he won all these awards, and I was like, this is a stupid argument. The best arguments for why technology didn't develop in other places is one, Christianity influence, but then two, just it being cold.
Yeah.
Forced people to do things.
Yeah.
Because if you live in the Caribbean,
you don't even really need shelter. I mean, just like lay on the ground.
Yeah, you just lay, unless there's a hurricane, it's fine.
Right.
And bananas grow all the time.
Yeah.
And people are like, do you need food? No, it's just they're here. The coconuts, bananas.
You put the lime in the coconut.
You put the lime. The coconuts give you all the liquid you could need for hydration. You can survive on many places in the tropics doing nothing.
And people do.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, that's cool.
But if you live in this is why the Swedes and the Nordic peoples are very orderly
and rugged.
They're orderly and rugged. This can have they tend to follow. They're very group oriented, and they tend to follow directions to a T, which can be used against them if you get someone giving them directions that is giving them bad directions. They'll just follow it. It can also turn them into genocidal maniacs if you give them someone saying, "And now we go kill." They're like, "Yes, so now we go kill."
They're great at firewood, though. Like the firewood game those guys have going on is incredible. I have a book about it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's all. I think that was Plato's argument for why different cultures developed, was that the weather influenced people in different ways. Of course, he thought the Greeks were the best because they were both hardworking but also lazy enough to enjoy life.
Sure, yeah.
Which is true. Germans don't enjoy life ever. They just sort of oompa around.
Well, that's enjoyable. I like to oompa.
I mean, I get, but compare Mardi Gras, like Brazil festival, to Oktoberfest.
Oktoberfest can get kind of wild.
In a Germany way.
Yeah, I mean, they're still German, I guess.
Everyone is just sort of bobbing up and down in rhythm.
By the way, that was CC Seeker that sent us that photo.
Oh, yes. Thank you, CC Seeker. I mean, I guess you can't do too much dancing in leather pants.
I don't think lederhosen are leather.
Aren't they leather?
No, man. They're green. They're green. I don't have a pair of felt or something.
Well, you can't dance much in lederhosen. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So we have mailbags, and then we'll talk about Jonas Salk, the eugenicist, genocidal maniac, inventor of the polio vaccine.
Yep, psycho.
And human farming, the download, multiple realities, all of these things. But first, we need to get to our mails. We had a mail from the first founding member of the MAPS Trucker Army.
Yep. Our first email is from John, who is a trucker, a real working trucker.
Salute to the trucker.
We give you much honor, sir.
Yeah. Without the truckers, the country falls apart very quickly.
That is true. Like, we're on a thin thread in this country, and it's made of truckers.
Yes. They're the modern day cowboys. I said that to one time, and he said, "Cowboys are the modern day cowboys." And I said, "Good point." But still.
Yeah.
But still. All right, continue.
Well, he just says that he enjoys the show a lot. And, but also he said that, well, he intimated that his, off-grid homestead was destroyed by a laser beam from space. Which,
oh, yes, I remember this one.
Which is entirely possible. Directed energy weapons are real. And John, I'm sorry that one of them burned up your house. I hope that you guys make a quick recovery and are able to get off the grid.
Now, I knew John was prime material to be part of the Maps army because he has a homestead somewhere and it burns down, and his first thought is laser from space.
Yeah.
And I thought
which would also be my first thought.
This is a guy that we need.
Yeah.
Now, John, I personally don't. I think it is unlikely that the government shot you with a laser from space, but maybe they did, and I appreciate that chutzpah to just go right to that.
Well, if you're going to do something great, you have to be the protagonist of your own story.
That's true. That's true. I think that is exactly the sort of mindset that we need. If I want all of our listeners to, if anything bad happens to them ever at all, to imagine the most sci-fi scenario explanation for it and just believe it.
Yep.
That's the goal. Thank you, John, for your letter. Tell all the trucker friends that you have. Get on your CB radio. Do they still use those?
I think so.
Everyone on the cell phone.
Well, they've got the whippy antennas on their trucks. They got to be doing something with them.
Yeah, that's true. My friend used to, like, a while ago, 10 years ago, my friend was a long-haul trucker, and he would get on the CB, but I didn't know if that fell out of favor. But get on the CB and just be like, hey, listen to this podcast.
One trucker listener is worth 10 regular listeners to us.
That's true. That's true.
Not to insult the rest of you.
One trucker listener that believes himself targeted by space lasers is worth 20.
Yeah, true that.
Okay.
True that. But he's right. We need to get our stuff together before a big solar flare knocks out the power. I
don't believe in solar flares knocking out power, but yes.
I do. I'm with you, John.
Okay, go ahead.
Don't listen to this guy.
It's one of those things that's like, oh, it's going to happen, and it never does.
Yeah, it keeps not happening. But, if it does happen eventually, we lose all the records of all the times it didn't happen.
That's true. That's true. I guess it's like a meteor impact.
Yeah.
Except those do occasionally happen, like the Tunguska event.
That's true. Yeah, that was a big deal.
Right,
and the Carrington.
There's never been a little solar flare that knocked out something.
The Carrington event, man, that zapped all the telegraph wires across America.
Oh, that's true.
Telegraph operators got shocked in their stations.
Okay. All right. I 180 on it.
The grid is a giant antenna. It's going to happen eventually.
Okay. I believe it now. Let's go.
I'm with it.
Yes.
And we also got a very nice email from Slightly Harmless, who says that she really enjoys the show. And, it's funny that people will write us and tell us how much they agree with something we were talking about or how it really spoke to them. And then they'll feel the immediate need to say that they weren't high. It's like, you guys, now I wasn't high, but you guys really had a great point about this, and I agree. So I don't know what that says, but Slightly Harmless, I'm glad you're not taking any mind-altering substances and that you are completely sober, and also glad you're enjoying the show.
This is the challenge of life, right, for people in our sphere, is to convince people that you're on to something and not on something.
Yeah.
You see the difference?
It's
true.
Something
and not on something.
Yeah.
A lot of people can't tell the difference. And today, if anything that I'm saying today is true, it's crazy. And but otherwise, I'm just off the reservation. So we're going to go way. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of you people are going to say, "Oh, that sounds a little too plausible," and then you're going to be in a different world. So anyway,
buckle up.
Buckle up. Those were our 2 letters. Send us more mail, everybody.
We love getting your mail. We really do.
Your mail is great.
You can send it to us at mapsoc.org, mapsoc.org.
Oh, hey, you know what else I was supposed to do this time, today's show? I'm supposed to try and cleverly, this is a challenge I set for myself, cleverly work in an advertisement.
Ooh.
Not that we're getting paid for.
How are you going to do it?
I'm going to try to do my skills and be like, this is my radio skill test.
Okay.
Like how can I like nice and, what do you call it? Have a good segue. How can I have a good segue?
I don't know.
And make it seem natural and like unforced. It's as unforced as Blue Apron. The best natural food source you can buy on the internet. That wasn't good.
What?
See, I'm already having trouble. Sheath underwear. Because your testicles need a pocket. I'm not very good at this yet, but I'm working on it.
So I don't really get the references.
Oh, well, they're all sheath underwear. or
Really?
Blue Apron. They used to be Blue Apron. That sort of went away. I don't think anyone does that anymore.
Uh-huh.
Sheath underwear is this guy makes underwear, and it has a separate like fabric fold for your testicles. And why anyone needs this is never explained.
Yeah.
But,
I don't know.
yeah. Anyway.
Never thought, hey, I need that. There's one more.
Oh, there's one more? Okay.
Yeah. This was given to me via text message from Sammy, who is not a listener, but he wants you all to know. I know. Well, I'm working on him. But he wants you all to know that drinking gin and tonics will help keep away tropical diseases.
That may be true. I mean, that's what the British did in the Raj in India.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of gin and tonics. And,
right.
I think in general, the consumption of alcohol acts as a preservative on your body just as it does. It kills bacteria. I think that it has that same effect. It kills some bad stuff in your gut going through, and they can be beneficial in that way. But I think you need the harder liquors to like the gins and stuff.
Right.
Like I don't know that beer is really sterilizing the GI wall. But that
really, I don't think it's the alcohol as much as it's all the weird herbs. I think there's probably a lot of like cocktails and spirits and brewing traditions that have medicinal basis back in far history.
Yes.
We have to rediscover. We have to return.
Okay. So, everyone has heard recently about the polio vaccine. The polio, it was a huge success. Polio was awful. It had a bunch of paralyzed children and people like FDR, but he wasn't. That was a big lie.
You're just gonna breeze over that one?
Yeah, he was obvious. He was in a wheelchair like McCain was in a boot.
Oh snap!
And occasionally, he was on his
shots fired.
The people have been feigning sickness for sympathy for ages. It's one of the oldest tricks in the book. But it's like, oh, you can't make fun of me. I'm a cripple. And then he would get up and whatever. So I always think of. Did you remember that show Get Smart? The
spoof spy show.
Spoof of James Bond in the 70s. And there was one villain who he was in a wheelchair and he suspected him, but he couldn't figure out how he could do it in a wheelchair, and it turned out he could run but couldn't walk. And that was it. Like as long as he was sprinting, he was fine.
Right.
That was that show. Okay. Anyway, Jonas Salk, the guy that invented the polio vaccine, which that's a whole nother show about the mythology of the polio vaccine and its success.
Sure is.
Yeah. It's dubious success, I would say, and maybe the connection to various pesticides that were used in mass, and that would explain why almost all polio cases were in rural children and almost none in urban children. But whatever, we'll talk about that another time. Despite inventing the polio vaccine, he also did some philosophical work, where he philosophized about how to kill everybody. And why that would be good.
Hang on, pause right here. I'm going to grab my copy. Okay?
Yes, grab your copy. You go grab your copy. Yeah, so anyway, listeners, Jonas Salk. Oh, that little song I was singing at the first was El Fusilado. It means the executed one in Spanish.
I'm back.
I was telling about the song I sang. El Fusilado was the executed one. Have you heard that song?
No. I have now.
Is a guy who it's a true story. He fought in the Mexican Revolutionary War. He was captured. He was lined up against a wall. He was shot 9 times. He fell down, was still alive. The officer came up and shot him in the head. They left. He was still alive. He crawled away. He lived. And then he lived to be 86.
Wow.
After that, he lived like 50 more years.
What a stud.
Yeah, what a stud. The Mexican Revolutionary War, we should do a whole show on that, because it had the Cristero War. It ended in the Cristero War and everything. Are you familiar?
No, I'm not.
Mexican Revolutionary War is fascinating, because it was a communist takeover of the country. It lasted like 10 years, right? From 1900 to 1910 to 1920. Mm-hmm. when all the other communisms were happening. They did a communism in Mexico. And the communists basically won and instituted the Mexican Constitution, the new one, in 1917, which basically banned Catholicism. And that wasn't going to fly in Mexico. And so then, on top of the Mexican Revolution, there was another war called the Cristero War, which is the Christ War, led by the large swaths of the agrarian population in Mexico that called themselves Cristo Rey, Christ the King. And they attacked and then beat the government enough to the government then conceded that Catholicism was not banned. And it was the only time in history that, so they were like, it was like communism, but then also this religious war. It was crazy. And it was the only time in history the Knights of Columbus ever did anything useful. Because right now, all they've ever done is do fish fries.
Well, that's one more than most people.
That's true.
I mean, to their credit.
All they do now is fish fries and sell, like, baked hams. They fundraise. But for a brief period of, like, 3 years, they like, smuggled arms and money to the Cristeros in Mexico. So, hats off to the Knights of Columbus. I'm actually a member of the Knights of Columbus that doesn't do anything. Which is most members of the Knights of Columbus. So that makes me one of the regulars. One of the people that signs on and then doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
Which is sort of how I've done most things. You know, like that was in the fraternity we were in together. Mm-hmm. Sign on and then I'm like there, but also not.
Yeah, you're sort of just a piece of furniture. A funny
exactly.
one. You know.
Exactly, the piece of furniture. And that's yeah. Anyway, Jonas Salk, inventor of the polio vaccine, he wrote this book called Survival of the Wisest, which you have a copy of, because of course you do. Even though it's out of print. It has been for a long time. That's exactly the sort of book that you would have.
Indeed.
I found a PDF version online, and you can find one too, listeners, which was fine. It was a little difficult to scroll through because it was sort of just scanned in, but in it, Jonas Salk talks about basically it's the same philosophy that people have had for like 200 years in the quote unquote intellectual class, which is, hey, people are having too many babies.
Yep.
And to save humanity, we have to stop that. That's his position, and just so that's the that is the just think about that position for a minute. In order to save humanity, we have to have less of them.
Yeah, right.
It's crazy backwards, upside down thinking,
and right? That's what's at the root of environmentalism. I mean, honestly. Yeah,
he had a quote that was like, Jonas Salk said, if every insect on Earth died, if the insects on Earth went extinct, the whole Earth would be destroyed in 10 years. If man went extinct, the whole Earth would thrive in 10 years.
Yeah.
Right? Because all these people have this view of man as this aberration from nature, which he's not a part of it in any way, and he's just like a cancerous growth on it. That's how people view humanity. And then they guise everything they do in terms of like compassion, but their view of compassion is that it would be better if you were dead.
Yeah, it really is.
That's their view. And he has this it's very boring because it's like if you've hung around globalist types at all, it's like, yeah, I know, Salk, I've heard this a billion times. You've got some fancy graphs that you just made up.
Right.
I mean, when I say that, I mean he just made them. He doesn't even claim there's data. He's like, this is what it might look like.
Yeah.
He's got some fancy graphs. And basically he has what he calls a sigmoid curve, which is like an S curve. Yep. It's a population growth. And as it goes up, he says that then it should flatline because it can't grow forever, which is true. You can't grow forever. Or maybe you can. If space is like people say, why couldn't we just make more and then go to another planet? There's supposedly infinitely many of them. Right? In the atheist worldview, this doesn't make any sense because we're going to go to the space, live on all the planets, and there's infinite of them. So there's infinite, we can grow forever. Right? In fact, that would be one of the only reasons that would give people a purpose to sail away, is if we got too many people here. So I don't know why that would be a problem. But anyway, in these people, like, this is something Terence McKenna brought up. He would argue with environmentalists sometimes, even though he was one. But he would say, you get no points for, like, saving the rainforest if a meteor comes and destroys the world. Like, we have to decide, do we think life is going to get wiped out by another cataclysm or not? And if so, we need to get off the planet and maybe take some animals with us. Maybe that's our purpose. He's like, hey, the Earth, in his view, Terence McKenna, he said, maybe the Earth is like, I'm tired of getting wiped out and having to start over. Let's make a species that will get off and take the stuff with it. Right? And so, it doesn't even make sense in their own worldview, because of course you could grow forever in that. But anyway, his view is like, you can't grow forever because there's finite resources and it has to level off. And as it levels off, we have to change our value systems, and traditional value systems have to be discarded. And we have to deal with like people that he uses the phrase that are the victims of life, like people that, and by this he means had the misfortune of being born, because that's these people's mindset. They're all depressed and they think that the whole world is pointless. So he's like, we have to do away with old ethic systems as we go from the rising curve to the flattening out part of the curve, and this will entail we have to mutate the population. He says this in the book, and he says this, we can do it through many ways: chemical means, selective breeding, or the introduction of natural or experimental viruses. And isn't it interesting that the Salk Institute, which was the thing he founded, was the first one to come up with the RNA vaccines? I don't know. It's a weird connection. I'm just saying. If someone talks about how we need to mutate humanity so that they change and want to die, and then their institute makes and they need to do that with viruses that change people's DNA and RNA, and then their institute makes an RNA vaccine, I'm going to be like, suspicious. Yeah. Or as my 7-year-old says when he plays Among Us, sus.
It's very sus.
It's very sus. It's sus. So anyway, it's the standard globalist fare. We have to change humanity and change our ethic system to deal in a world of overpopulation. And one of the ways that you would do that is mutate the population through various chemical, viral, or other means, and through social engineering systems, which is why, of course, the people that still have this ideology, everyone in this sort of set has this ideology. That's why they push homosexuality, transsexuality, birth control, all of these things, because you need to have less, that needs to be accepted so you have less children and we can flatten out this curve.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Everything that can't make a baby, they're going to advocate it.
Right. It's all great. Now, it's just, I mean, I don't want to really go through it because it's so boring because I've heard it before. It's like, yeah, okay, Salk, this is totally new. Who came up with this before? That overpopulation is a problem. You're the first smart person to ever say these things. Very annoying. But so Jonas Salk, the hero of medicine, talks about how we then need to distinguish the people that need to continue to live and those that we have to, in some way. He doesn't outright come out and say destroy, but we need to attenuate.
Yeah, he kind of dances around it. Yeah,
he kind of dances around it, but it's pretty clear if you read between the lines. He's like, these are the people we got to get rid of.
Right.
And the people we got to get rid of are anyone that has objective morality. Like, he basically says this outright.
Yep.
Anyone that thinks there's right and wrong, anyone that thinks that life is good and preferable to death. He says life and death are equally fine. It doesn't matter. Right.
Which is silly for a vaccinologist, so-called, to be saying that there's no difference between life and death, yet he's supposedly creating a life-preserving vaccine against polio.
Yeah, and you know how he tested it?
How did he test it?
He tested it on quote-unquote imbeciles, in his own words.
Oh, no.
People that were mentally retarded.
Yeah.
Because he said his basic thesis was doesn't matter if they die.
Yeah.
They're not they're not some of the wisest in his survival of the wisest that need to live. They're evolutional dead ends, and they need to go away.
Yep.
See? Them and other people. So next time anything with Jonas Salk comes up, just remember that this is that man. But here's the thing. I want to talk more about that ideology and where that comes from. Because his ideology is like the same ideology as Bill Gates now. It's the same as George Orwell's was, or Orson Welles rather. It's the same as all of them for like the past, since the French Revolution at least, and probably since earlier.
Yeah.
Which is that life is actually bad and it has to stop. That's basically their position. And now you can see how people would be there. Bad stuff happens. There's pain. There's suffering. People are very depressed. You can see how people would get there. But that is the ruling ideology of these people pushing these things, right? I would say that's the ideology of most people in the United States government at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay. So, now, I just told you some things and read you some things of what Salk had to say and what he did. And I hope most of our listeners can discern from that how evil he was. But here's where we get into the discussion. A lot of people can't see it. Not won't see it. Can't see it. It's impossible.
Really?
To use Jesus' languages, they don't have eyes to see or ears to hear. We're going to discuss how that can be, and then what that is used for, like how that's exploited. So as you texted me this week earlier, and you said there was a 1-to-1 correlation you noticed, 100% overlap between your friends taken in by the George Floyd narrative and your friends taken in by all of the COVID narrative.
Yeah.
Like those who bought it hook, line, and sinker bought both.
Same people. Yeah.
Right.
It was very distressing to me personally.
Right. So what can explain that? How do so many people that buy one buy 100% of the other? Because on the surface they're not related. One's racial, one's like viral, and like one is like policing policies, and the other's like health. But like they're not related really. So why would it be that the same people skeptical of one are skeptical of the other, and the same people like how do you get? And the same people that buy it hook, line, and sinker buy it hook, line, and sinker. And the same people that are on the fence about one are on the fence about the other. What explains this? Well, that's why I played the radio for you at the beginning of the thing when I was screaming Urge Towers and quoting Animal Farm and was slowly flipping through the channels. Because life is about frequency. And I was changing the frequency on the radio, and you pick up different things. Waka Flocka Flame, Taylor Swift, Mozart, mariachi bands, they all exist on the radio at the same time. The radio can pick up any of them, right? They're different frequencies of existence. And when you're tuned into one, you can't hear the other. Ever. If you're tuned into the Mozart station, the mariachi band can go Arriba! Like two things over, and you'll never hear it. So that is, I'm proposing, this is actually a theory proposed first by, to my knowledge, Matt of Quantum of Conscience.
Okay.
The frequency model of mind and existence. So this is something I've talked about before. This isn't peculiar to Matt, but this idea of like frequency changes. I believe the best explanation for consciousness and the brain and the human body is that the brain does not produce consciousness, but the brain picks up consciousness like an antenna. And your particular brain is tuned to your consciousness, of course, and that's why it comes through, right? Now, if the antenna dies or is damaged, like if you have a brain injury, you get static in the signal. It doesn't come through very well anymore, right? Or maybe some parts of it come through and some don't. Or if the person dies altogether, the signals, but the sound doesn't come out of the radio anymore, but the signal's still there. The consciousness, the soul, still exists. It just doesn't have a way to incarnate into a body because it doesn't have a receiver.
Okay.
Okay. That's why I think you can
have out-of-body experiences. That's why people do, I think, because the receiver shuts down for a minute and then it pops back on. Maybe due to some trauma or drug use or something like that. I think that's also why you can occasionally, and some people more than others, pick up psychic intimations from other people because their consciousness is bleeding over onto your station a little bit. But then within that, in a fractal nature of that, your consciousness is tuned to some frequency of reality, some way of seeing reality. Just like you scroll through the stations on a radio, and you may want to listen to Waka Flocka Flame. You may want to listen to Cardi B. You may want to listen to Mozart. And if you whatever you tune into, you can't hear the others. You literally, so the people that can see how Salk was evil, other people cannot hear it because they're on a lower frequency. I believe it's lower. Like they're on a lower, more degraded frequency. And you will conform to whatever frequency you're tuned into, be it a high one or a low one, right? And so like things, this is one reason I believe that like sins, the classic sins of like wrath, gluttony, lust, all this stuff are bad, is because they degrade your frequency. They tune you down in a way. Like I think probably like people used to say that like masturbation would make people go blind. Mm-hmm. Maybe it does. Maybe you can't, if you're addicted to porn, maybe you get tuned down and you can't see anything beyond the surface level of stuff. Like it just doesn't appear to you anymore. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. You get tuned down to a lower frequency. And this is what Matt has called the reality download, which is where people have a view of reality and then a new song comes on their station and now they have a completely different one. And there's no questioning involved at all. Like consider the rapid reality shifts imposed on the populace recently, in the past 20 years, let's say, and they accepted basically all of them without question completely. Example, 9/11. Planes hit the buildings. That day, that evening, they knew who did it. Osama bin Laden.
Right.
We have to go kill Osama bin Laden. Okay? Killing Osama bin Laden. New song. We have to kill anyone that might be like Osama bin Laden. Let's go get Saddam Hussein and Gaddafi. 2011, we kill Osama. Great. Okay, but now we're actually here to nation build and give them democracy. And everyone's like, right, we're here to give them democracy. Like we were, just keep in mind, right? We were to go get Osama bin Laden. We did it. But no. We were always here to give them democracy. Right.
Right, yeah.
2019, okay, they have democracy, but now they need girl bosses and trans rights. And then this year, or a few months ago, we're pulling out and plan for all contingencies. And then slightly later, the new song, okay, that was bad, but it was always going to be like that, and we weren't there to nation build anyway. Right. And everyone's like, okay, it's what it is. Like Biden gets up there and he says, we weren't there to nation build.
Yeah, nation building is ridiculous.
But now everyone's like, we weren't there to nation build. Right? And you wonder, like, what do how can people do this? Like, but remember how we played Buzz Aldrin talking to Conan? Mm-hmm. Where he says, you didn't see me on the moon, you saw an animation. Yeah. And we saw Conan go, I saw you on the moon. He goes, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. You saw an animation. And Conan goes, it's almost like they're a computer. And they have a file, but they haven't accessed it in a while. And when someone asks them to access it, they go back and they say, oh, the version's been updated. And they say, and so Conan's like, I saw you. And he's like, no, you didn't. And it's almost like there's a bit like, oh, right. I saw you. I heard you on the radio.
Right. Yeah.
It's creepy. It's weird.
Yep.
But I've seen this happen in like real life. Like you'll be like, oh, remember that thing? And then be like, yeah. It's like, oh, but that's different now. And they go, huh? And like, yeah, it wasn't like that. And they go back and it's almost like they have a pause, like they're uploading. Like, right. Well, yeah. And then it's weird. Yeah. But that's the download, right?
Yeah. Go back and watch that Conan clip. I'll try to link it in the show notes for this episode. But the way Conan like totally retcons his memories in real time as Buzz is speaking, it's amazing to watch. It's really striking.
Yeah, and it's people. That's what happens when you're on the frequency. You can't get out. You can't hear anything else. And so, like just like 8 months ago, getting inoculated meant you were immune.
It never, ever, one time meant you can still catch it, but you get a mild case. That's never what being vaccinated was supposed to do.
Right.
And then, but now they're like, that's what vaccinations always do.
Yep.
What? That wasn't true, but they're like, that's what it always was.
Yep.
Or when you were like, people like, it's totally normal to like be sick for 4 days after a vaccine. People used to get that with the flu all the time. Like, no, they didn't.
No, they didn't.
No, they didn't. I remember, I'm not on your frequency.
Yep.
They may have run a fever a little bit for like a couple hours. That's true. But even that was sort of rare when they had the flu vaccine. But they weren't like sick for like 4 days. And people are like, that's normal. That's what all vaccines do. Or they're like, look, the mask thing is great. I've talked about it. It's like, they're useless against respiratory viruses. Now they're essential. They're the main thing.
Yeah, man, that thing changed on a dime.
And everyone just accepts it. It's just like a different... There's zero, this stuff changes on the fly, zero questioning, totally acceptance by those tuned in to that frequency. And, lest we be hypocritical, we're all doing that just on whatever frequency we are on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can go up in the frequencies, right? You can be in higher frequencies, where the other narrative changes on the lower ones don't affect you. And the highest one is, of course, God's frequency, which is unchanging. But have you ever read A Wrinkle in Time?
No.
So in A Wrinkle in Time, the AI that governs everything is called IT. And it's a totalitarian AI system. Again, this was written in the 60s because nothing's new under the sun. And life is controlled. Everything in life is conformed, voluntarily or involuntarily, to a rhythm being played over loudspeakers, like boom, boom, boom. And so people like begin like, they like sort their mail in tune with the rhythm, and people play baseball in tune with the rhythm, and everyone is together in tune with the rhythm. And anyone that tries to break out of it, they try, but then the rhythm is still playing, and so they're eventually they're just like trying to, and they find themselves walking in the rhythm when they stop thinking about it, because it's just this constant boom, boom, rhythm that's just constantly imposed on people. It's a frequency they're all tuned into, and they all have to conform to what they're tuned into, even if they're trying to break out of it. Because the minute they lose focus of like, I'm not going to do it that way, I'm not going to do it that way, and they try to just walk normal, they find themselves syncing up to the rhythm. That's what this is like. Okay? And people in that book, most people voluntarily accept the rhythm because it takes away the burden of choice. And then like, you're not guilty for your actions. You're just like, you become an NPC. You give up your autonomy, but that takes away the burden of feeling guilty for making the wrong decisions, right? Because you don't make any decisions anymore. Someone else gives it to you, which is a dark thing, but that's what a lot of people do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why people are so susceptible to the rhythm. Okay, now consider for a minute in the book, A Wrinkle in Time, they had this broadcasting loudspeaker, but you, listener, also have a rhythm too. You want to guess what broadcasts it?
I don't know.
I think mostly cell phone towers.
Oh,
and I don't mean this in any sort of crazy technical way, like they have a microchip in your brain and they're controlling you. I mean, it's even more potent than in the book Wrinkle in Time.
Yeah,
it's literally an urge tower. It broadcasts urges to the public: lust, envy, anger, anxiety, fear. Boom, boom, boom. Lust, anger. Be angry about George Floyd. Be angry about George Floyd. Be angry at the people that are for George Floyd, and you're not. Be angry at the people not angry enough about George Floyd. Just do it. Be angry. Remember, go out the street. And everyone's boom, 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 and everyone syncs up on that frequency, and it's like an enchantment. Remember, to be enchantment is to be under the sway of a chant. It's a boom, chicka, boom, chicka, boom, and people sync up because the universe is fundamentally musical, and the devil was the chief musician, basically. Like Kanye was talking about, some ancient traditions had depicted Satan as having a rib cage that was a harp.
Weird.
Was so in tune with him, right? And he plays this boom, 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 and he plays this evil rhythm, and everyone syncs up to it. They download their urges and they go act them out. And it's because of these urge towers, which are all around you all the time. Now, the Good news is, the less into sin that you are, the less your receiver picks up those frequencies. Like, if you're not looking at porn every day, the lust urges will not be as effective on you. Mm-hmm. If you are practicing forgiveness, the anger urges will be less effective on you. But this is why it's important to shield what, the media comes to you, because the urge towers are trying to get you to sync up with a rhythm. And I started thinking about this because there was a tweet that got a lot of traffic this week, which was a lady asking, how did we go from heroes storming the beaches of Normandy to men on soy freaking out about masks in like 3 generations?
Yeah.
And my response was, those are the same people.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Oh, don't you want to be a hero? Don't you want to save grandma, right?
Yeah.
You have to save grandma. Put on the mask. Take the vaccine. Get on the boat and sail into the machine gun. And they will. Because they're following the rhythm. Like these people that are acting like very, effeminate now, mm-hmm. if the song changes on the thing, they will turn into bloodlust machines. On a dime.
I absolutely believe that, for sure.
Yeah. On a dime. Because they are tuned into the frequency, and it doesn't matter if it doesn't make sense. It's just the song is playing, and they have to conform. I mean, think about how crazy that sort of stuff was. Like World War I. Okay, Hans. Okay, Jimmy. Okay, Jean-Luc. Nobody Bosnian Serb shot Franz Ferdinand when they made a wrong turn in motorcade. So now you have to go sit in muddy ditch and turn it into hamburger.
Yeah.
And they're like, yes.
Yeah, we should totally do this.
This makes sense. Let's go.
Right.
And it's insane. I mean, they did it then, and they do it now because they received the download. Like, the whole of World War II didn't need to happen. It was just like, you have to go sail into the machine gun, Timmy. And Timmy did, because otherwise he would be bad, according to the song that was playing.
Yeah.
You don't want to be off beat with everyone else. Like, think about how, this gets very deep into what we are. Like, think of rhythms. Like, if people are clapping, you'll find your feet just tapping along with them, just involuntarily, or your head bobbing. This is something people are made, because the universe is musical, because it's fundamentally frequency. Like, this is what the Hindus were getting at when they do om, like that's the low frequency, like that's the chant of God in their views. Like it's all musical, and you conform to the rhythm given to you. That's why music can be so uplifting and also so like soul destroying.
Yeah.
You can brainwash, you can destroy the black population for a generation by giving them gangster rap.
Absolutely.
Rap can be fun.
Yeah.
Like if it's uplifting. But like gangster rap, like go shoot people, have sex with random women, do drugs, and you give them that beat, the boom, boom. Notice how strong the beat is in rap because they're trying to keep them down. And the stronger the beat, the heavier the rhythm, the harder it is to resist. Boom, boom, boom. And then it's like, I got to do like that. I got to be like that. And you will conform to that, And, or you can have very uplifting music, right? It can go either way, depending on what you want to play. But so those people that freaking out about COVID now and those people storming the beaches of Normandy are the same guys. And this explains how grand conspiracies can play out. Because the question of conspiracy, always given to conspiracy theorists, which people have always had trouble answering, is like, how would anyone plan all this?
Right.
It's crazy. And like that's one of the questions. Like, is there a creepy table? Like, it's one of Matt's terms. Like, is there a creepy table? Is there some shadowy table in an office somewhere where all the giant creeps meet together and they plan their world domination? Like George Soros is there, and that Klaus Schwab and Bill Gates, and they all get together, and like Obama's there dressed as a devil horn thing, and they're all there, and they're like sitting around in a smoky room going, and then we tell them that. Then we tell them there's ISIS K. Dun dun dun. Like what? That won't work. They already knew about ISIS. What is ISIS K? It's like, we just sold them on Delta variant. We just have ISIS variant. Oh, right. ISIS K. Good. And then they shove out ISIS K, and everyone's like, oh, it's ISIS K, right? Is there a creepy table? And the answer to that is yes, there are creepy tables, but I don't think there's a big creepy table, like an overarching, like there's the Bilderberg Group and the Club of Rome and stuff like that, which plan little things. But I don't think there's an overarching, like, creepy table where they all meet and then Satan sits down with them in a robe. And it's like, hello, my minions, this is what we're going to do. I don't think it works like that. I think there is rather a frequency that you're tuned into, the evil frequency, the lowest frequency, and that that low frequency can you just sync up with it, right? This is like why all of the people in Hollywood, people in universities, the people that consume the same media, they all just sort of sync up together and they're just doing the same thing. Like no one is sitting there telling every Hollywood director to push the same woke points every time. That's not how it works, right? It is more like it's just they're tuned in to the same sort of frequency, you know? And hold on one second. I'm getting some background noise.
Okay.
Are you hearing background noise?
It sounds like there might be some drama.
I think there's some drama. Hold on.
I hope everybody's okay.
I'm back.
Glad
I think I got it sorted.
Sweet.
My children were fighting.
As
they
happens.
do.
Yeah.
My daughter has seen. This is a good example actually, because today, because my daughter watches a lot of the Disney princess movies.
Mm-hmm.
You know, which mostly they're okay, I think, but they like to sing in those, right? They sing about their emotions.
Yep.
So today we were at the playground, and there weren't many little kids there. She's smaller. There were a bunch of big kids there, like 10, and she's like 4.
Mm-hmm.
And then she was sitting there sad, and I went over to her and said, "What's wrong?" She said, I'm scared to play with the big kids." I said, "Why?" I said, "Well, I don't know if they'll like me." I said, "Oh, just go try. They'll be fine." She said, "But I'm nervous." I said, "Why are you nervous?" And then she stood up and raised a hand to the sky, I swear, and she started just singing about her emotions.
That's cute, man.
She went, "I am sad, and nothing can make me glad. Because I don't know." And I was like, well, okay, we need to lay off the Rapunzel. Because although it was effective and adorable to see her seeing her emotions, but I was like, that's a little, you're too tuned into that frequency.
Yeah.
But see, that's what I mean. She that frequency is laid out and she goes to it. And that's just how it works, right? And so I don't think there's an overarching creepy table. I think there are little creepy tables, but I don't think there's an overarching creepy table. I think it is frequency based.
Mm-hmm.
And so your like I said, your actions lower your frequencies, and you literally cannot see it. Like it seems so obvious to me that Delta variant, quote unquote, is not something we should all be overly worried about.
Amen.
But people that are on that channel cannot see what you're talking about. Like,
True.
It's not a choice of, like, try. That's why you can't reason with them. Like, they literally, it's like you're trying to say, listen to this beautiful movement of Mozart. And they're like, but Cardi B is on right now.
Yeah.
And they're both true because all the realities are operating at the same time. Hell and heaven exist simultaneously in the same 3D space. They're just different frequencies that you can be on, right? And so, jealousy of people's other stuff on Instagram, pornography, getting mad at your uncle on Facebook, getting gluttony inflamed in you from watching mukbang videos on YouTube, or firing up your greed trying to score the next big 10x crypto, right? These are all broadcast of the urge towers upon you. And they want to lower your frequency, to lower what you can perceive, to make you blind to anything but the surface level of things, to blind your eyes to the spiritual. It's just like in was it Ezekiel? I think it was Elijah. At one time was like, they're worried about some army. And he says, this other guy's with him, and he says, Lord, let him see that those with us are greater than those with them. And the other man's eyes are briefly opened, which means his consciousness was tuned to a different frequency. And then he sees like all the angels around him. He's like, ah, and then he turns them off again, right? Because it's too much. But that's there like if you were on that frequency, you could see the spiritual world all around you all the time. But you can't because you've been degraded. Right? Okay, so there's that. But then how does this work? And like, how is this abused and why? Like, where does this come from? And this is where we get into the Animal Farm thing. Because in Animal Farm, the basic story is the animals are mad at the farmer because he's exploiting them. And he is. Like, the farmer does exploit the animals, right? He kills them for meat. He takes their hair, or whatever. He also gives them a good life until he decides to kill them, right? So, but whatever. And so they revolt against the farmers, the humans, and then they have the pigs become their leaders. And then over the course of the book, toward the end, the pigs and the humans, the pigs have taken up all the same evils as the humans they hated. And the quote at the end of the book is, the creatures looked inside, they're looking inside the window to the farmhouse, from pig to man, from man to pig, and from pig to man again. And it was already impossible to say which was which, because the pigs took up the behavior of the farmers, and they conformed to that frequency to the point where they were indistinguishable. Right? So this is where the farming part comes in. So it comes from choosing, basically, even though you don't know this is what you're doing, it comes from choosing Satan as your caretaker instead of God. Like, who is your master? You can only have one master. Do you serve God or mammon? You can't do both, right? Jesus made that very clear. You can't do both. So there are two choices. Put your faith in God or the God, quote unquote, of this world. Both offer you security. One in a form you can't see. He just says, trust me, I've got it. It will work out. I'll take care of you. And the other is in a highly visible, formal way that requires no faith. Here is some money. Take that. Money is your security for tomorrow. Right? That's why Jesus compares it God and mammon. Money,
yeah.
Right? Those are two
it's
choices.
Interesting he didn't say God and Satan.
What now?
It's interesting he didn't say God and Satan. He said God and money.
He says God and money. That's right.
Yeah.
Now I think mammon is under is a subgroup of Satan, but that's
sure.
This is why I think he's framed it that way.
Yeah.
Okay, because they're both offering you security, right? People try to serve both. Like the one time I brought up in Sunday school, I thought maybe it's not a good idea to save for retirement. Maybe that's bad. Maybe that's like the parable in Jesus when he's like, the guy that stores up all those things in his barn. He says, "You fool, you're going to hell." Mm-hmm. And everyone was like, whoa. It's like, well, but can you serve God and money though? And everyone, this is very scary for a lot of people. And I understand, right? It's not easy. Okay, so if you serve God, you get freedom, and that freedom comes with uncertainty. Those born of the Spirit are like the wind. You hear them and feel them, but you cannot tell where it comes from or where it goes. That's what Jesus said about people born of the Spirit. They're free, literally as the wind. Now that comes with some uncertainty. You're promised you'll always be provided for. Your daily bread will always come, but you won't know where it's going to come from. You have to flow with the now, like the Tao, and you just are going, and wherever the Spirit is carrying you, wherever the wind is carrying you, that's where you go. And that's the way humans were meant to be, and that can be scary. If you don't believe in God or trust Him enough, it can be terrifying, because it's like, it's very scary. I don't blame people for being afraid of it. Okay, option 2. The God of this world offers you instead a life of certainty. You never have to be anxious or think about where your next meal is going to come from. But the catch is it comes with slavery and stagnation. You enter the system of the beast, and the beast promises to care for you, and it will. It's not an empty promise.
But you got to live in the pod.
Right. People sign on for the beast, and they go work at the corporate job, the 9 to 5. They pay the taxes, get the welfare, the Social Security, the police force on speed dial, medical insurance, dental, liability insurance, fire department fee, all that stuff. And that is a life of security. And the beast says, look, put your faith in me, in mammon, and I will give you a regular paycheck. You can spend how you like and all these various amenities on offer. All designed to reduce your anxiety and give you someone to call if you get in trouble, right? So you're scared of that weird-looking guy down the street? Call the cops. We got him. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about your food. Everything you want will be in the grocery store. If you get sick, the doctors will give you all kinds of drugs and will pay for it. If you crash your car, I've got a whole payout system to get you a new one. It's called insurance, And if you want a nice house, no problem, sign on the dotted line and we'll give you a mortgage today. Now, that does mean a death pledge, but don't think about that too much. Do you want kids but don't have to worry about raising them? Understood. I've got this building you can send them to for 8 hours a day. Well, we'll teach them everything they need to know, and you don't think twice about what it is. Don't worry about that. Trust me, they'll come out just how I want them. And I'll send a car for them in the morning and everything. Heck, I'll even take them in diapers. Drop them off at the daycare. Worried about a job? No need. Here on Pleasure Island, the Beast provides you with all sorts of certificates and licenses to make sure you, and only you, can do some hyper-specific tasks that most people could really do in reality, but which we won't allow them to do without jumping through the same hoops you did to get a license or a certification. This will give you job security. You want to feel like a real man, but you're a coward? No worries. You can live vicariously through this giant military apparatus and root for them like you do a sports team, pretending that them winning is you winning. And here at Beast Incorporated, we've got you covered. Anything your heart desires you can have risk-free. Will always catch you if you fall. And that's the sales pitch. It's a good sales pitch. It's very appealing. But there are two catches. The first is that when you enter Beast Incorporated, you have to live by certain rules, and those rules are arbitrary, and you tune into the frequency, and whatever the frequency is doing, you do. Otherwise, the beast may kick you out because you're upsetting the herd. It's a farming system, right? This is why it's a very apt analogy. This is why Jesus uses sheep and goats. You have the herd of God and the herd of the devil, right? It's a farming analogy. It's not really an analogy. It's exactly what it is, right? Because the second catch is that you've got to die when the beast wants you to. It's a farm. It really is. Like the animals are cared for by the farmer. They have a great life, full food, medical care. They give them their shots. They're tended to if they have an injury. They live inside beautiful fences. They're protected from predators. They don't have to make any decisions. They can never worry about making a wrong one, And the farmer comes in and he lets the chickens out of the coop, and they can pretend that they're free range for a while, and then they go back inside the pen where they're safe, and they scratch for worms, and they inside this little world, they can scratch and fight each other for dominance and the social hierarchy or whatever. But they're all in the pen, and they may not even, most of the time, they may not even feel. They may forget the walls and fences are there, and they may not feel like livestock anymore because they could almost believe they're wild animals. It's great in some ways, but the only thing is, one day the farmer's going to want a snack. You don't get to say no. That's the only thing. If the farmer is hungry, he gets to kill the chickens. And so those are your choices. You can be a wild animal, free as the wind, dependent on God for your sustenance, as the birds of the air are, the lilies of the field. Or you can be the farm animal, dependent on the farmer. And that farmer happens to be Satan through the tool of mammon. But, you don't have to think about that if you don't want to. So let's say that you choose to be livestock. Most people do. What does it look like when the farmer gets hungry? What does the culling of the herd look like? What's it look like when the farmer comes for his harvest? Right? That's why, you ever think about why death is depicted with a farming implement? A scythe?
Yeah.
Right? Because it looks like World War I, like I said. It looks like World War II, the French Revolution, the Great Depression, forcing people into lockdown in their homes for years, depriving them of a way to earn money. It looks like Vietnam and birth control and abortion clinics, fentanyl epidemics, right? And the thing is, none of this is an allegory or a metaphor in any way. This is all 100%. In fact, I'm starting to give the position there's no such thing as metaphors. It's just all 100% true. Like, you are, like, the livestock class, if you're part of it, most everyone is, you're literally farmed. And I'll tell you how. Because there was a gamble made on your life. A literal gamble, a bet. Take a guess who made the bet. Take a guess who is the farmers in this scenario. Who are the human beings which are farming the population, the country, the state? And remember, they always have to tell you. It's always hidden in plain sight.
I don't know.
We are farmers. Dum da 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 da.
Insurance companies.
Think about it. State Farm. They farm the state.
Oh, man.
We are farmers. Dun da 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 da.
Oh.
Humana. Human manna. Human bread.
Whoa, man.
All state and nationwide, we are farmers gathering human manna. Right? Now, maybe that seems like a stretch to you, but like I said, they have to tell you always. It's a spiritual law. The devils are angels and they can't tell lies. They have to tell you. We are farmers. Like, it may seem like a stretch, but let's see if it still does in a minute. All right, so what was the original choice? The original choice was, who is your master? Who do you look for security? And when you get down to it, security in this world is given to you through insurance companies, literally from Mammon. Like, that's where the grocery store gets their security from. That's where the health system gets their security from. That's where you get yours for your house, it all comes from that. And insurance is the driving force behind 90% of all the statutes and mandates in this country that dictates how you buy a car, a house, how you wear a mask, or if you have to get vaccinated, your pension, your Social Security, everything, because the farmers made a bet. They made a gamble on your life. Monetary policy, public monetary policy, was created based on a gamble of insurance companies about how long you would live. When they were rolling out Social Security and all these things and all these social systems, they made promises to people based on a guess, their gamble about what the average lifespan would be. That's how they budgeted it all out. When they promised Medicare and Medicaid to 300 plus million people, they made those promises based on what they thought they could afford, based on how long they thought they'd have to care for any given individual statistically. Like when they promised pensions, if you're a teacher, or a government employee, or military. Fine. Unfortunately for you, though, their guess was wrong, which happens sometimes. Life expectancy went way up. When they started all this social safety net stuff, it was about, the average life expectancy was mid to early 60s. Not great. Now people had the audacity to start living into their 80s. And that's a problem, right? It's nothing personal. The farmer's not perfect. It's just math. You have to have a great reset now because you can't afford it. You understand? You put your faith in us. You look to us for your security, and we don't have the money for all of you. You're living too long. We have to cull the herd now. We have to sterilize some, just like we do the steers. We have to, the trans stuff and literally we have to cut the testicles off some of them, and we'll convince them it's their idea and that it's good just because we're merciful in our own way. Like, the devil is merciful in his own weird twist. It's all twisted. Like, it's not just straight hatred. It's like, on some level, he really does believe he's a better father, quote unquote, than God. Like, because he thinks existence is bad, just like Salk does, and he's going to try to mercifully take you out of it. On some level, he really believes that, and he really gives you his own twisted form of mercy. That's why it's so weird. If it was just straight hatred, it would be much easier to deal with. But so it's nothing personal. It's just you have a herd of cows, and each one costs $1,000 a year to feed and house, and you budget for each of them to live 20 years. You get in trouble if they all start living to 30. You're going to go broke, and America's going broke. See, the farm is insolvent now. Very, very insolvent. In fact, the USA farm currently has 122 trillion, the low estimates, the high estimates is up to 300 trillion, in unfunded liabilities, which is a fancy word for promises of healthcare and pensions and taking care of you that it doesn't have.
Yep.
122 trillion, not billion, trillion. It's an impossible number because not only did they plan on the baby boomers dying 20 years ago, they also planned on them having kids to pick up the tax burden, and they didn't. They barely had replacement level, and their kids had less than that. So you see, it's pointless to complain about immigrants. It doesn't matter. Like, yeah, I know, but it's a mathematical necessity. Like, we have to get these people in because we have to cull that herd. And I'm sorry, this is just the deal you made with the farmer. Like, it doesn't matter what your politics are. Vote in whoever you want. The insurance companies know what has to happen. And, they're the ones that dictate, like, the housing stuff and why BlackRock has to buy it up. And it just, you have to have a great reset, a culling. And this is not new. Right? It is not in any way, shape, or form new. Like the Great Depression. How was it resolved? A new deal. Like we had the culling, and now we have a reset. It's a new deal. The herd was culled, and and then after we had the New Deal, and that was very expensive, we realized that. So we had to have a big war, and we send the guys off, and now there's not as many of them anymore. And so that's nice. Because you have to die when the farmer wants you to. That's one of the catches, right? And after the war or the poverty or the plague is over, then they have a reset. And they start fattening up the cattle all over again. I mean, for goodness sakes, the Peace of Westphalia was a great reset in its way. Like it's a cycle because any farmer knows you grow the herd and then you cull the herd. You grow the herd and then you cull it. It's the same. And even when you have the Satan's goats, he has to do that with too. And in his own head, and in a lot of people's heads, frankly, it's merciful. A lot of people tuned on the frequency. They say thank you. They die and they say thank you. And it's very twisted and it's very weird, but that's what happens. And so in the 40s, when it was, like I said, when it was obvious the programs couldn't be paid for the New Deal, well, just blow up the world. And then that'll cut down the cost a lot. And then, when they started, Reagan took out the credit card in the 80s. And then they started rolling out abortion because, well, this can't last. Not all of these people can have this stuff.
Right.
Right. So the war culls the bulls, and then you have sterilization efforts on the cows. The wars get rid of the men, and then you sterilize the women in all kinds of ways. Birth control and abortion and feminism and all these things. It's the same thing. That's why, I said homosexuality, transsexual. You have to, because you convince people to spay and neuter themselves, basically. And this is the thing. And it is a contorted compassion. That's what makes it so, like, the problem is, like, God, like, the thing is, God still loves Satan because God is love, and he loves everything he created. But then in a twisted way, like, Satan still loves, Satan's trying to prove himself. It's all very broken. He's like, I thought you were supposed to love me. Why do you love them? Look how awful they are. See what I can make them do? Look at this. They're not worth anything. Love me instead. I'm supposed to be the best one. Why didn't you become an angel? Why did you become a man? Like, his desire for God is the source of his twistedness. And it's like that all the way down. People's desire for security, and they want the good things of life because life is good. And they want, like, I want to be sure I can have, like, a nice place to live, and we can go on, and we can go surfing, and we can sit on the beach. And it's like, yeah. And the devil's like, yeah, you can do that, once a year maybe, if you just sign up for the slavery. I'm like, yeah, I want to be sure I can enjoy the good life, And so it's all twisted because it's born out of love turned upside down. And so, because there is some sense of, like, twisted guilt, it's not just pure hatred. It's like, they have to make it so that it seems okay. Like, the beast tries to make sterilization and murder seem okay. It's liberating. Hey, you got your balls blown off in Afghanistan, but you're an American hero, and you saved the world from fascism or whatever it is, whatever the trend is now. You saved it. I mean, I know, but I know all your friends and brothers were just put on a stupid little boat and literally sailed face first into a machine gun. But look, we made some really heart-moving movies about it, and you look very brave. And people feel like that's release, It's the same guy doing the COVID stuff now. It's the same guy. It's the same people saying be unemployed, like the frequencies going, be unemployed and poor and commit suicide and riot and die by police shooting. You're helping black people. And, like, yes. Because that takes away their choice they have to make, and they can feel secure in the pen, And it's like, it's so, I don't know, there is hatred there too, though, because they like to, like, point out the absurdity and make you, it's like on World War I, the Christmas truce. Like, it's like, you get to come out today and play soccer with the Germans. And then that just to show you that you all know you don't have to kill each other. But then tomorrow we flip the switch and you go back. Yeah,
the Christmas truce thing didn't make a lot of sense to me just looking at it. It's like, how are you going to go take the day off and go play soccer with these guys?
Well, here's exactly how you do it. The same way everyone in the world is scared of COVID and seeing their neighbor. But listen, go out and riot and burn down the city. It's fine. You won't catch COVID.
Yeah, I mean,
it's the same thing.
Yeah, dude.
And because the frequency, there's malice, and like I say, it's twisted love, but it's like an abusive. When you choose Satan as your father, you choose an abusive father who thinks he loves you in some twisted way. But he also likes to, like, show you how stupid you are. Like, it's like, you really believe that. And so, I mean, just this great reset, I hope not, but be prepared for a lot of people to die in various ways. I don't know how exactly. I mean, this is just the opening salvo. Like they tell you very openly, the Great Reset will be completed by 2030.
Yeah.
That's their timetable. That's the timetable of the farmers. And those that are the livestock have to do what the farmers want. Now, you don't have to be the livestock. You can get out at any time, but most people will not because it's too scary to put your faith, to go out and be a wild animal, right? And put your faith in God that way. Like they will literally line up to be tagged, just like with their vaccine shots, and given a number and put in the system rather than that, right? And so this is just the opening salvo, really. Don't be surprised. I don't know how it's going to work. I don't know if there's going to be some war triggered or if, I don't know, but just don't be truly if this stuff turns out very ugly. I wouldn't be surprised yet if the vaccines have a negative effect on fertility. I'd bet good money on it now, honestly, because colon sterilized is always the agenda. Now, it can't be too overt, right? Because then people wise up. Not every woman that has the vaccine can be sterilized, but that's too hard to hide. But, like 5% here, 10% there. Make it sort of murky so it takes years to pin down what the cause is,
Mm-hmm.
And then, you combine that with pushing alienating lifestyles and infertile sexualities and abortion and birth control. The farmers can probably drop reproduction to like a quarter of what it is now. And, they probably will. And that's just how the world works. It's crazy, but that's how it works. And these urge towers just boom, boom, boom. And you just fall in line with, that's why it's so important to try and align yourself. I think this is why holy places are always built up high, because you can get a better signal, like literally from the heavens if you're higher up. This is why they always built the temple on the mountain. This is why Jesus always goes on the mountain to pray. I think that may be why in the Old Testament, the most common way people prayed was standing with their hands up as if they were an antenna. You ever think about that?
Mm-mm.
They look like they're an antenna sitting there looking to heaven with their hands outstretched. Like maybe you really are in some ways like trying to pick up the frequency. Maybe you're really trying to be tuned.
The idea is coherent with the sort of electrical universe idea.
Yeah. And this is I think at the fall of man, the song of the heavens was perverted in some way, or like I don't know quite how to explain it, but and that caused everything to get off kilter, and that causes death, and it brings all this stuff in that shouldn't happen because it's all unresonant. It's not on the same, and the frequencies are like canceling each other out when they should be in harmony and all this stuff. And, and so people line up, like now I said, like to get tagged because it's so scary. And like livestock, they clip a tag to a cow's ear, and people get so scared. They're like, and like I said, I don't know if this is the mark of the beast, but it's certainly in the same vein, it's certainly of the same archetype. And that's not this, and the marks of the beast have been throughout history. Papers, please. It's been a thing that comes when there's a culling.
Yeah, it's like across Christianity, we're really comfortable with the idea that there are lots of little a antichrists. Yeah. But when you try to say there's little m marks, people get uncomfortable. There's little m marks,
and then there's a big M mark at some point, and I don't know which one that's going to be. This one is not by the definition yet because it's not on the hand on their forehead. But you could imagine that maybe they could be like, and you need this barcode. You could come up with something.
Yeah.
That it could turn into that. I don't know. But definitely, but people get so scared they won't be able to buy and sell because that's how mammon feeds you when you're in the pen.
Yep.
But the children of God are like, it's not even scary because it's like, well, yeah, but I don't actually even need to. It's like the parable when Jesus, not a parable, but the story when Jesus they're trying to collect taxes from him, and Peter comes and says, they want to know if we pay the temple tax. And he says, what do you think, Simon? Who do the leaders of the world take taxes from? Other people or their own sons? And he says, other people. And he says, then the children are exempt. And his implication is like, you and I are the children of God and we're exempt from all this stuff. We don't have to because Jesus was a sovereign citizen. And,
oh, snap.
He was in that way, right? Who's more sovereign than Jesus? and also
good point.
citizen.
Yeah.
So he's like, I'm exempt. I don't have to pay. But nonetheless, so that we don't offend them, go to the sea and cast a line. You'll find a coin in its mouth. And so the people are like so scared. I won't be able to buy and sell. But like, if you're under God's, if you're the free range animal that lives outside the pen, it's like, well, yeah, but I don't do that at all anyway. Like literally, and this sounds weird, and I'm not on this level, right? But literally, if you are near sainthood, of like, and I mean that in like near like holiness, perfection of holiness, you don't even need money. You can live totally without it and be fine and be happy and healthy, and everything will work out. But see, and this is why people get mad at you for not taking the marks, because and not going along with the stuff, because by not doing it, by not being livestock yourself or being less livestock-like, you show them what they are.
Yeah, it condemns them. Yeah.
You go over the fence and they can't. They see you not comply, and they are guilted for sailing into the machine gun. And they get mad. Like, why don't you sail into the machine gun? You come jump in the ditch with us. Franz Ferdinand and the ping and the bah. We have to all go die in the ditch. And the thing, and the ISIS K and the Della, we have to bah. And you're like, yeah, but I'm not, I don't have to. And they get so upset because it's like you not doing it means they didn't have to do it.
Yep.
But they did do it because they were afraid. Because it's sheep and goats. And so the question, everyone all the time, is which are you? And it's the same question of who is your master? Because the people get mad at their farmers, but they don't actually want off the farm. They just want different farmers. Right? They just want different leaders. They want a revolution, they put someone else in there to farm them. And usually he's worse. Just like an animal farm. They didn't want to be free animals. They just wanted farm life to be less oppressive. And they did a revolution, and then they get the same thing. Because a revolution always goes around in a circle.
Go ahead and ask the most conservative baby boomer you know if we should get rid of Social Security.
Yeah, almost none of them will say.
He will turn purple.
Yeah, because we are farmers. Bum, ba-dum, bum, 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 bum. And it's right in plain sight. State farm. We farm the state. It's humana. The human manna. Like, you can say you're against, but you're still under the thing. And I get that the God's offer is quite scary, because he's like, just don't worry about it. Jesus literally says, take no thought for tomorrow.
Yep.
That's difficult. Listen, don't worry in any way about tomorrow or how you're going to survive. None. That's what I do, and it's fine. And that's what God will take care of you. Doesn't he do it with the birds? Doesn't he do it with the flowers? How are you different? You have little faith. But that's what the move you have to make. Otherwise, and I'm not claiming that I've made that move to that. I try to get more of that direction, right? But it's very scary. And so that's the move if you want to get off Satan's farm. And that will free you. And the more you move away from it, the less the urge, I found the less, like now I just don't even care. It's like you see all these people arguing about like ISIS and Afghanistan and COVID, and I feel like I'm just watching people spin in circles, and I am, because this is the same arguments over and over again. People having the exact same argument, beat for beat, about Afghanistan that they were having in 2001.
And we're about to do Hurricane Katrina again.
I know, it's the same thing, always, over, forever, because that's all. The devil has a limited repertoire.
It's the rhythm of farm life.
The rhythm of farm life, that's right. Which is, there's a season of fattening, there's a culling, and then you go back to fattening again. And people, I mean, if you asked animals in the woods, like, listen, if animals could talk, we're going to give you everything you need. All the water you could ever want. All the food you could ever want. You don't have to worry about predators. Plenty of mating options. It's going to be great. The only catch is, you have to die when we want you to. Maybe a lot of animals would take that deal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, arguably some did. I mean, the wolves that became dogs took the deal.
Yeah.
And we do love our dogs, but also a lot of people that think they love their dogs go and poison them when they get too upsetting. Like, you're getting a little old, So I'm going to take you to a very nice facility, and you have to die when I want you to. You see, you do this. It's all fractal. It's fractal, fractal, fractal. It's all the way down. And the wolf doesn't have to do that. The wolf lives a much freer life, but the wolf lives a much scarier life in some way. Now, I don't think that a wolf has really gotten out there and in that life is scared of it anymore. I think he just is flowing like the wind and is fine. And I think that's how you can be too. So you all have to make a choice. Who is your master? Where's your faith in? You cannot serve God and mammon. Do you want to be the dog in the pen, or do you want to be the wolf outside?
If you want a little exercise, a fun little exercise on this is to look at pictures of bears that are enjoying views. Mm-hmm. Because a bear will just sit at some vista in the mountains and look out over the mountains and just enjoy the view like a human would, you know?
Yeah. I mean, animals definitely have emotion. I mean, they don't experience in the same way, or the same depth. Yeah. But they definitely know beauty, and they definitely know love. Like, they love their cubs, and they just don't have it to the same depth that man does.
But that bear that gets to enjoy the view also has to go out and scrap for survival.
Yeah, that's right. And see, his life is harder because of us. Like, Jonas Salk is wrong about humanity going away and life flourishing. We are the linchpin of the whole creation. If we all got right, literally the heavens themselves would get right. Like the stars and the sun and the moon. It would all click back over to what. Now, we can't do that apart from God. That's why we can't do it until the eschaton. But it will happen. And then that comes, but you can do it to some degree in your own life. And when you do, stuff starts to click back over. Like, it's like Saint Augustine famously would go out, and wild animals would come up to him, and he'd just pet them because he was himself on that heavenly frequency to a much greater degree, such that the world was healing around him. And going back, the lion was laying down with the lamb in his vicinity at least. Outside of it, maybe not. But he was a little broadcasting station walking around broadcasting the heavenly music. And it was syncing stuff up around him to his vibe. But you can also be the opposite. And you can be walking around broadcasting the hell station. That's why some people, they go up to animals and they growl. Because they're like, they feel that hatred and the anxiety and the fear is coming off that person, and the animal picks up on it, and they tune into the frequency and they give it back. And some people, you have even angry dogs, and he's never friendly with people, and they come up and they just wagging their tail and they're having a great time.
Yeah.
Because all of creation, you are sending out vibes, to use a modern term, but it's very true. So try not to be on Satan's farm. That's my suggestion. And resist the urge towers as best you can, because they are trying to sync you up to a rhythm. Boom, chicka, boom, chicka, boom. Hate, boom, chicka, boom, chicka, boom. Lust, boom, chicka. And then you will, and if you're listening, you will do it.
Yeah.
So, that was a bit heavy today, I guess.
I thought it was a great talk.
Yeah, this is inspired by I don't know. I was gonna say one of our listeners, but not really. I've been working on while my guitar gently weeps.
While you play, I'll just mention that.
Yeah.
Or while you don't play, I'll just mention that you can leave us a great review on the podcast player of your choice.
Oh, right. Commercial. I was going to do a commercial for the St. Nicholas Project, but I'm awful at that. Yeah. If you want to support the podcast monetarily and experience a few nice little side bonus podcast, which I still need to sign Smokestack up so he can be a contributor, but I haven't done that yet because I've been disorganized. But if you want to do that, it's $7 a month, and it helps out the podcast. It helps us do things like pay for the hosting service and microphones and the things and whatever. And it's nice if you do that. But I realize that means that I'm still on Satan's Farm to a degree, and that's true. I'd like to not be, but, yeah, it is what it is.
We're all just doing the best we can here. Yeah, play us out a little bit.
Okay, I'll play Gently Weaves. Okay.